Seattle is imposing a new tax on wealthy residents of the city. Our next guest has a message for them. Don't pay. Welcome, Susan Hutchison, chair of the Washington State Republican Party. You know, what you're doing, you're taking a page out of the left's book. Civil disobedience, don't pay taxes. You know what you're doing, don't you?
Of course we know what we're doing, but we don't consider it a left-wing tactic. After all, the Boston Tea Party was a massive act of civil disobedience.
I remember it well. I've never gotten over that, quite frankly. But seriously, you are adopting the tactics that have been recently, so the past couple of generations, used by the left. You comfortable with this?
Look, in our state, we don't have a state income tax. It's unconstitutional. It is illegal by state law, and 9 times the voters have turned it down. And so when the Seattle City Council, which is led by a avowed socialist, decides to impose an income tax on us, we know there's something phony going on. And so what their real goal is to challenge it in the courts, to defend it, I should say, in the courts, all the way up to our state Supreme Court, which is very liberal, in hopes that it can turn over the constitutionality of the prohibition against an income tax. And for those of your listeners, your audience, that live in states with an income tax, you need to know that Washington State is very highly taxed, one of the most taxed per capita in the country, with the #1 sales tax in the country and skyrocketing property taxes.
When I think of civil disobedience, I think of protesters sitting in the streets, non-violent action. But what you're talking about, I think, and let me straighten me out on this, is you're telling people don't pay these higher taxes, just don't pay. That's a different kind of civil disobedience. That actually is breaking the law.
Well, what would be required of all of our residents is that they participate in a brand new bureaucracy that would have to be formed inside city government. And the goal, of course, is really the state. It's intended to make a state income tax. So it would be a state bureaucracy as well, so that we all have to report our incomes. We've never done that before in this state. And so here in the city, people are being urged not to comply, not to file, not to pay.
Okay. What's it like being a Republican on the West Coast?
Well, it makes you pretty tough, I'll have to say that. We're always in a fight. One of the things that happened when I went to Seattle City Hall on Monday of last week to protest this vote, I had a news conference and was totally drowned out by what I would call a rent-a-mob that showed up and yelled so loud that the reporters could not hear me and I could hardly hear them. And this is what happens in a place like Seattle, is there is no alternative voice. I feel for the people in this city because they never hear the kind of information that you purvey on your program every single day.
Do you think that at any point in my lifetime, and I hopefully I've got maybe 20 years left, hopefully, do you think that at any point in the next 20 years we'll see a Republican voted, that Washington State, Oregon and California will go for a Republican candidate in a presidential election?
That's hard to say because we sort of model ourselves after Wisconsin, which is very similar in nature to Washington State. We have a very conservative agricultural side of the state, and then we've got a very liberal city in Seattle and some of our other urban areas. But we're working on it. You know, we are 1 seat away from controlling the entire legislature. Whoa. And that's the first step in Washington State. Oh. And the next is a governor and to turn over some of these federal seats. We've got great Congress people here, including Cathy McMorris Rodgers, as you know, leadership in the U.S. House of Representatives. So we're very proud of our Republicans in Washington State. Okay,
Susan Hutchison, brave soul in Washington State. Thanks for joining us, ma'am. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Okay.